Hey, it's me, me, the guys with the five eyes that you see. It's great to be back again. I'm still out here raising my babies and trying to work while trying to put together, these videos aside and everything. I've got a lot planned for the channel. I've got some Let's Plays coming and some game reviews, more game previews and everything like that. But just want to thank you guys for sticking around and not unsubscribing at the very least. At the very least, I got my subs and my subs. So I wanted to talk today about the increased tensions we are starting to see in the video game industry because of the actions of the industry as a whole at large over basically most of the smaller studios as they constantly absorb them and constantly run through them, dissolve them, lay people off. It's causing a lot of friction between gamers and the industry off of the most minute things, to the degree that even if the gaming industry is actually in the right, as we'll see with Helldivers, still you kind of still understand why everyone's mad. Okay, so before we get to the Hellldivers scenario, I actually wanted to talk about Microsoft's scenario right now. And just recently, I'm sure you guys have heard, they have closed Arkane, Austin, Tango Gameworks, and a number of other studios too at Bethesda. So as you know or may not know, these studios are within the developer ZeniMax at Bethesda, whatnot, right? And some of the games they've made are like Redfall from Arkane and The Evil Within and Hi-Fi Rush from Tango. And the crazy thing is Hi-Fi Rush is basically lauded as one of the best Xbox games of the generation, and The Evil Within is one of the most popular games that I would say in the horror genre, or I don't know if it's horror or what's it called, suspense thriller, but it's one of the more popular games. I always see its name gets thrown around. I see people playing it. Redfall had some hype and it didn't live up to what it was supposed to be, but at the same time, it probably could have used a sequel and everything like that. So yeah, there's a lot of with these closures, as you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to lose their jobs, and there's also a bit of controversy that we have here as well, because I know one of the I think one of the Microsoft reps, they were quoted, and don't quote me exactly as this because I need to find a Twitter, but they were basically, it's weird, they fired some of their smaller game studios, but then the guy was saying how they needed their small game studios to keep producing a good product, and people were kind of like pointing out the hypocrisy of that, and it started to confuse a lot of people what kind of angle the industry is starting to go with a lot of these layoffs.
You ain't shit without me. You without me equals shit. You understand that, you ugly fat bitch? Now let me borrow your car.
Because to some degree, that these shareholder businesses do have a bottom line that they have no choice but to cut, because basically the way these businesses work with shareholders is they have to grow until they die, and in order to infinitely grow, you've got to basically cut your nose and cut your face and cut your eyes until there's nothing left and you reach the peak, and then there's no point to you as a company. So what a lot of these gaming industries companies feel with their smaller studios is, what they'll do is they'll see how they produce. They'll make a game like Hi-Fi Rush, and they'll think to themselves, they're probably never going to make a game better than this, so there's no point in just letting them continue to go on. That's my thing, because we really don't know exactly why, like their official reports why, but that's why we're on YouTube, to guess and assume everything. And there's a very nice article here on The Gamer, which I guess I keep going back to more and more, by Tessa Carr, and it's the real reason your favorite game studios are getting closed instead of sold. She says here that it's about the IP, and that Microsoft would rather kill the studio that made a successful IP than let it get purchased by a competitor. And she brings up a good point, because a lot of these smaller gaming studios, when they're independent at times, or they get bought by another person, a competitor, quote unquote, they'll end up producing the IP, and if it becomes successful and becomes a franchise, it's less that they'll take away profits from people possibly playing another game to play theirs from Microsoft, and more so, that's money Microsoft could have had that they won't. And again, like I said, a lot of times, sometimes they view when you make a game like Hi-Fi Rush and it's one of the best games on Xbox, a lot of times they doubt, okay, you may make a sequel, but if it's not as good as this, then we're gonna lose money. Because if you guys made, let's say, 4 million off of this, the next game has to make 10 million. Never mind the fact that if based on the budget, even making 1 million or 2 million or copies or whatever, you know, use your imagination. 2 million is what will put them in the green. So even if they made 4 million this year and 2 million this year, they're still green. That's not how it works in business no more. We now live in a business environment where you have to have plus every single year. And if you think about it economically, that's not sustainable for the whole economy. So that could be also another reason why a lot of these companies close these IPs, because they know they're not going to boost extra profit. And another thing that I like that she says is Microsoft isn't trying to grow, it's trying to starve everyone else out. When it comes down to it, Microsoft's strategy here isn't actually to let go of studios that aren't serving the company's vision. While Arkane Austin's latest game, Redfall, was quite the mid, everybody was shocked to hear that Tango Gameworks, who created Hi-Fi Rush, the most interesting and critically adored Xbox exclusive of 23, being shut down. If its studios are golden geese laying golden eggs that bolster its reputation as a company that cares about lifting up smaller studios and diversifying the market, this is the equivalent of culling those geese. Maybe they'll feed the remaining geese they do have, and hopefully they'll lay more eggs faster, even though this isn't how eggs worked. The geese had to die, they couldn't be sold to their neighbors or allowed to run free, because then other people could get the golden eggs too, and they wouldn't be as valuable. It's Xbox eggs and nobody's eggs. Never mind, these geese have to die. That's a pretty eloquent way of putting that there, because basically Microsoft and it's just so weird. This is why we have to rethink how we do business in this country, because I'm starting to come to the realization to myself that competition doesn't make any damn sense. Actually, if anything, competition is what the industry as a whole is using to create monopolies and to have a stranglehold on every sector. Because think about it, right? If I'm trying to sell a game and you're trying to sell a game, the best thing that can happen for both of us is someone buying both of our games. But a lot of times people usually only have a choice between one or the other. So that's when a lot of people are like, well, it's competition. It comes down to that. But my whole thing is, if someone doesn't buy my game and buys yours, I'm okay with that. Because in the end, we need this space to exist. Whether or not I'm here to stay in it or you're here to stay in it. Because guess what? I want to play games myself, my own damn self. And that's just the way it is in life. You don't always get picked first for the dodgeball games. But why should I have to undermine you to sell my game? If my game was that good, they would just buy it anyway. So I feel like we need to think more in terms of cooperation, because when everything is a competition, then clearly someone's in charge of the game and someone's throwing the competition. That's the person that gets the fruit of all your labors, not you. You're out, Microsoft is out here trying to kill all these companies, reserve the IPs, and hold it all for themselves. And now it's gotten them a $3 trillion valuation. But from what I learned about money, it's that's stored in the riverbank. And because of that, the currency flows. But it doesn't always fill up that bank because it comes in waves. And just because Microsoft has $3 trillion does not mean it can't lose a lot of money. But at the same time, it's valued at $3 trillion. So it already has all the money in the world. And again, I feel like what they're doing, what these companies are doing to these studios is highly economical. I'm pretty sure that on their forecasts and their outlooks for the future, economy-wise, they know that people like us are not going to have a lot of money to buy games in the future. And they also know that because a lot of that money isn't going into the game industry and it's going to go into other industries like groceries and toiletries, because people are going to be way more conservative with their spending, especially depending on who gets voted in this presidency, right? they are already predicting that even though a studio like Hi-Fi Rush made one of the best games, ever for Xbox, in the future, people are probably not going to buy that second game as much, because by the time they finish developing, we're probably going to be in a depression, full blown at that point. And that's what these studios are waiting for. But the thing is, because none of these people are transparent with us, the customers, about what they do, they just go off and they just make these crazy ass decisions. Well, what do you know? You end up with a player base that's just mad at you guys. And there's another article I also like for you guys to visit. It basically kind of explains what the other person talked about too. But it's a great article by Andrew King. And I just wanted to point out here that sequels may be cynical, but they're also essential. And he was kind of talking about how like Hollywood has that sequel problem where it doesn't live up to the first game. But when it comes to video games, sequels tend to be the best games. They're like usually the best games of all times are usually some kind of sequels, whether it's San Andreas or Ocarina of Time, Halo 2, Mario 64. Most of the best games of all times are, games within a franchise, or sometimes a lot of times a trilogy, like Gears of War 2, the original Gears trilogy, the Halo trilogy, Assassin's Creed 2, and then that's the Ezio trilogy. Usually games that are already good, when you make a sequel, they're usually even better, and we need a lot more of that. But again, like I said, that's probably not within Microsoft's plans. They probably don't care about that. If anything, they just want to stick to the existing IPs that they have. And now I wanted to go over and talk about the Helldivers situation and how that relates to what we have going on with Microsoft. So as you guys may know, that the Sony basically requires PC players of Helldivers to either link their PSN accounts or create a PSN account to be linked to their PCs, whether they're on Steam or whatever kind of thing, to play Helldivers 2. Now, a lot of people are very mad at this, to the point that they're review bombing Helldivers 2 and they're sticking it to them on what's that thing called, Metacritic. But the thing I thought about review bombing though is like, I don't really know what that actually does to the I guess it does something to the optics of the game, but in this case, I think it does the opposite. Because here's the key scenario, right? The game always was going to require you to link your PSN account, but the problem with Sony is that they didn't let that be widely known, because at the beginning of Helldivers 2, there were a lot of technical issues and it wasn't the same game that we know today. There were a lot of things going on, so they just delayed. But I will say, this is where Sony messed up though, is that they didn't, again, these companies are never transparent about anything. They didn't let people know that this was going to happen. You just kind of had to read the game, or however when you buy the game on Steam, whatever the contract is for buying the game or whatever, you had to kind of read that already. And because of that, a lot of people did not understand this, and this is why they're so angry. They're thinking Sony is kind of coming out of nowhere just making this happen, but that was how it's supposed to be the whole time, and it's getting to the point where, from this article from Liam Croft, Sony doubles down to Helldivers 2 PSN requirement by taking off sale for PC in numerous countries. Now, basically, if you're a new player, you got to connect automatically. If you've been playing for a while, you've got to connect at least by June 4th. And Sony is, they're not playing with this. They really need you to connect this game. Otherwise, you might not, depending if you're like in Bangladesh with Jasprit, or if you're over there in Russia with Putin, it'll get taken off your store and you don't have access to it. But at the same time, though, I've got to side with what Sony's doing, because it was in there from the start. I don't like how they didn't let people know though eventually, but that's how it was. But see, I'm also on the side of the people, because Sony and these companies have brought it on themselves. And it's actually getting so bad that Sony fired a community manager for Helldivers 2. May have a revolution on his hand. Oh, and this is an article from Kale Adam. These people got some crazy names. I've never seen that ever. Kale? I hope it isn't coal in any kind of weird language. I'm guessing it's kale though. So in a bombshell development, it looks like developer Arrowhead may have a revolution on its hands as outraged Helldivers 2 players who defended the developer just days ago rise up. They demand justice and official canonization into game lore, because of course, ain't nobody taking this seriously, for the undemocratically dismissed community manager, now dubbed General Spitz. They have 4,500 signatures on change.org, and it aims to force Arrowhead to reconsider the dismissal of Spitz, who has been a fixture within the community since launch. During the darkest hours of the forced PC PSN account linking debacle earlier this week, Spitz, perhaps feeling the call of destiny, directed community on Discord to make their displeasure known through reviews, refunds. It gives us more pull in the discussions with Sony. They don't read our Discord. Now, we've got to admit that if you're going to work for Sony, that's unprofessional, because it's within, you have to work in the interest of the company. So when you're telling people to go get refunds and everything like that, that's taking money out their pockets. So Sony is actually within their rights to do what they did. Wrong. But again, that's why I say Sony brings this on themselves, because he said they don't read the Discord. They're not plugged in with how people are feeling. A lot of these companies, it's going to happen any day now. If you hate companies, if you hate big corporate capitalism, you're in luck, because see, these companies have just been taking advantage of the fact that boomers and Gen Xers have had all this boku money for all these years, and it trickled a little bit down to the millennials, but these Gen Zers and Gen A'ers and everything like that, they're not going to grow up buying every video game console. They're not going to grow up having these big ass physical collection of games. They're going to stick to their couple of games. They're probably going to emulate everything. They're going to buy emulating devices. Actually, you know what? You can go on Amazon and sometimes get these hard drives where it'll be like a couple terabytes, and it'll have hundreds of thousands of games. SNES, NES, Game Boy, all that stuff. The younger generation is a bit more price conscious, and they gravitate more toward, when it comes to games that are a bit more about community and a bit more about, they like that free to play. That's why Fortnite's so big. That's why games like Fall Guys do well. I don't know if you got paid for Among Us, but it had its hype, but people still like that kind of games. They're going to start sagging off the Call of Duties. They're going to start sagging off the Halo and all these other kind of games, right? Because they're just not going to have that kind of money. But these corporations, they're not used to that. They're used to people constantly coming in with bags for working as a janitor and being able to feed their whole family. They're used to the Gen Xers, being able to piggyback off their janitor grandfathers and fathers and stuff like that, who go to college, and that basically gives them an end to a job they may or may not be qualified for. We're at that point where having a degree does not mean getting a good job anymore. So these companies are going to they're going to end up suffering a lot. And again, this may be reasons like these are the reasons why I think Microsoft and the like are closing down some of these studios. And they're doing it, and they are doing it a bit short-sightedly to me though, because they don't understand the studios that people like.
Would you like to sign our petition to get more humane treatment for
video game developers?
If you don't get that bullshit out of my face, bitch.
They just know that people are eventually going to run out of money in this economy, and they're just trying to save. But just like how Sony isn't paying attention to the community of Helldivers, Microsoft isn't paying attention to their community, and that's why everyone's kind of wondering what the hell is going on with Microsoft, and what is Microsoft going to do? Like, are they going to still keep making Xbox? As we know, they're starting to focus on cross-platforming their games now. I remember at a time where of course, exclusives would be like only on this console, but it was kind of funny how on the original Xbox, it was like only on Xbox, and it looked like that little yellow stamp, and it just looked so like raw, it's on this shit, maybe like you not about to play Halo on that little PS2.
Cash, what you got? Well, I said I got game cash, man. Damn, I can't afford it. I'm broke, nigga. I'm broke.
I'm playing on this. It used, Xbox 360 games. That used to be the console that you would get the raw games like Gears of War on, and Blue Dragon. what were some other good Xbox 360 exclusives? I mean, of course, Halo too. But I mean, honestly, when you think about it, I mean, like for the longest time, when it came to shooters, Halo was like the most epic shooter of all time. Period. Like Call of Duty was great, but it took Modern Warfare for it to really get to that Halo status. But like when 360 had Gears of War and Halo, I mean, you know, and what the way the button trigger was, it felt like an actual trigger. You know, that was the joint for shooting games. I'm getting a bit off track here, but you know, like 360, Xbox was at its peak, and then the Xbox One. I don't even know like what was it the Series S first, or is it the one after? You know, it was as simple as calling that shit 720, and then maybe calling the next Xbox Oracle or something. I have no idea, but like, you know, once that third generation Xbox came in, things starting to kind of taper off. They kind of started to get lazy with like the big franchises like Gears and Forza and Halo, especially with Halo and Gears. They kind of they tapered off way too much. Those are two games that really should have ended their main trilogies, and then if they made any other games, they should have just made up some other stories. Definitely, for sure. And they kind of did, and they were kind of raw, but you know, they didn't lean into that like ODST. And now we're in a situation where, you know, Xbox is kind of giving up on itself, and Microsoft is like basically trying to make money any way they can. And the thing I'm gonna leave you off with, because I know I've been bickering on for so long. Ooh, 23 minutes, good lord. Hurry it up, will ya? In my personal opinion, I feel for these people, and I want them to keep their jobs. I want them to have a job, period, because I know these people are damn near in charge of our memories at times when it comes to these games. You know, some of these games literally make your childhood, you know, so these people are important in our society. Because when we're children, the games these people make entertain us, they bring us together. Like, I have some memories now with games that I play with my friends that could make me end up crying, like just from talking about it, because we grow up, we grow older, we grow apart, we grow our own families, but some of us sometimes grow our own demons. And I know some of us have stories where we play with someone we know in our family and they're not here anymore and everything. So it's really deep when these people get laid off for typical corporate cronyism. And the way I'm gonna just go about it is it's like a necessary sacrifice to a degree, because the way I look at it like this: if these corporations are going to break apart the studios that are trying to make these games for us, sometimes these absolute legendary games, let's stop buying their product then. Like, I'm not finna buy a PlayStation 5. I mean, mostly because having a PlayStation 4, I mean, I feel like there's no point. But I'm not finna buy no Xbox. I think I'm going to do Game Pass though, because Game Pass does support the smaller studios when you play their games and everything like that. But beyond that, you know, I'm going to try to just lean in more to find good small studios that I can support, and just support just another industry of gaming. Because I feel like gaming is going to go the way of the music industry. You're better off probably making your own games, in like the same way you're better off probably making your own music. Because for a lot of people now, the tools are there. You don't need this crazy overhead, these crazy computers with crazy systems. And as people get better at doing more things at once, now people are able to design levels and then model levels better and everything like that. You know, I feel like if you want to make a really big game that sells really well, I think you're better off trying to find a team, come together on some good terms for if this and this and this happens, and try to end up like the crew at Power World or whatever, or even these guys at Helldivers. You know, some of these projects range from 20 to 50 to 100 people. They don't need thousands of people and everything like that. And we gotta do something if we're gonna make the game industry start to listen to us. Because see, that's the biggest problem right now. They just don't listen to us. They don't care. Like that dude said, Sony don't read us on Discord for Helldivers. You have to listen. If you're a company out there and you think you're gonna be big and you got a Discord, you better pay attention to that damn Discord, because that Discord shows the people who are going to give you the money that you need to exist. Listen to that Discord, ride that Discord. And don't do anything else to that Discord though. Be careful what you do in that Discord. But yeah, support smaller studios, because they're gonna need all the help they can get. And you know, just we gotta keep the pressure on these big gaming studios. They can't keep treating us the way they've been treating us, especially with all the work and all the money we've been giving them. But that's me, Who He Told Me, signing out. See you guys later.